We're here in Barstow and we're going to drive these two trucks up the mountain to the top in Big Bear Lake, California.
Whoa, there we go, airborne. Yeah! Almost knocked my glasses off.
We've moved from the desert side to the base of the mountains. We got to find our way up there. Problem is, if we waste a lot of time getting up here and finding out it's really gone a mile ahead.
Well, you wanted an adventure, so.
It doesn't say road closed, it says washed out.
See, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah, I guess I am.
So what's great about off-road oriented trucks like this TRD Pro, it can take you to these places that we're saving, we're preserving, and you can actually go there and enjoy them because you have the capability, you have the off-road chops. You can't do that in a street-biased vehicle. So in a way, these trucks, they expand horizons, and that's pretty rad.
So that first little bit we walked by was nothing. It was a little narrow, you had to be careful. We got another little weird spot right here, but it's not that hard. It's just a little bit uneven, but nothing these trucks can't handle. We're pressing on. We've got plenty of places to turn around if we have to, if we get to a real washout. But I am beginning to be optimistic. This place is the junction of two trails, the easy trail and the trail I thought was going to be like medium difficulty, but I haven't been here for, I don't know, 15 years. And now the sign says most difficult.
So you think what, rock slides have made it more difficult or what?
I don't know, maybe a Jeep club got hold of it and decided to have fun and move some rocks around and make it harder. I don't know. Or maybe they just got a little bit cagier with their ratings and it's no different than it was before. I think it's time to air down.
Okay.
It takes about 10 PSI out of the tires, maybe a little bit more, make them more compliant so that they wrap around the rocks rather than bounce off them. They'll get a little bit bigger footprint, more traction, and every little bit helps. And when you get to a trail that's got this rating, you pretty much have to do it.
Okay, and we'll be ready to put it in 4 low and maybe lock the diffs too, possibly?
We won't lock the diffs until we get to an obstacle that requires that, because you don't want to do it all the time because you just bind up around corners.
And this thing, the ZR2, has a front and rear locker.
Yeah.
The TRD Pro has only a rear locker.
Exactly, and that is an advantage for this truck.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So we're on the way to White Mountain, which is on the way to Big Bear. So far I'm still in high range, 4-wheel drive. No reason for low range yet, but I expect that will change in a few minutes. This is the part of the trail I remember. It was very loose and rocky, and you just have to kind of keep your momentum, power through. And right now I'm having trouble. Well, not really trouble. It's just, but you can see I'm bouncing around. You just have to work your way through it. Okay. There's a rock about this tall. It's taller than I've got access to, so I'm trying to drive around it. I got the front around it, but the back is up against it. So what we're going to do is make a little ramp with a rock or two and pop it up. We'll see if that works.
So we just came to the other side of the hill, and the terrain has changed significantly. I encountered a lot more sharp looking rocks. I was a little concerned about the tires on this. They're just not quite as hardcore as what's on the ZR2. But to my surprise, these tires have been fine. I mean, they've been taking everything in stride. I've had no traction issues whatsoever. And so far I haven't cut a tire, so either my caution is paying off, or more likely these tires are just more robust than I'm giving them credit for. Just after comparing them side by side with the ZR2's tires, you know, I gotta say I have a little bit of tire envy. Those things are pretty gnarly on the ZR2.
One of the things about this truck that I don't like is the shock absorbers in the rear are mounted in the middle of the axle, halfway between the tire and the differential. Instead of having just a differential hanging down and having that be the low point, you've got two lower shock mounts that hang down even lower than the differential. So you've got three things to worry about when you're going over rocks like this. The Tacoma tucks its shocks up against the wheel, and so it's a lot more open underneath there. The diff is the low point and the shocks are out where the wheels are, so they go up when the wheel goes up. But this truck, you know, if I try to straddle something, I gotta be really careful.
So crawl control is awesome in the Toyota TRD Pro. It allows you to get unstuck from places that you otherwise, you know, might be stuck in. It's not a gimmick. It actually works really well. There were a couple of points where I just couldn't get traction. I couldn't get enough grip using my throttle control with my foot, but using the crawl control, man, it just motored right over the sticky spot with very little difficulty. So that's a thing that you can get not only on the TRD Pro, they're on the other lower level Tacomas it's available.
Hey, I think I'm at the top. Oh man, the wind is blowing like crazy. I don't want to get out. So yeah, that long rocky stretch, yeah, that's kind of a signature of this trail. It's not hard, it's just you got to keep at it, keep your momentum up and not go too fast, not smack a rock on something important.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right speed. You need some speed, but too much is deadly. So is the trail to the top like what we just did, or what's it like?
It's been 15 years, I don't remember. I think it gets a little easier.
Yeah, okay.
We've reached the summit of White Mountain. Now we're losing the light and we've got to get to Big Bear. Looks foresty, doesn't it? We got trees, yay, and pine cones, and smooth, silty roads. Not nearly as many rocks.
Well, we made it to the bottom. The wind is no longer 60 miles per hour. We're feeling much more comfortable, and for the descent, we switched vehicles. So I was in the ZR2, Dan was in the TRD Pro. Dan, any observations that jumped out about this?
Almost immediately, I realized that I could see out over the hood better. You know, the hood is just not as prominent, especially out at the corners. And it also doesn't feel as wide. You know, the ZR2 has those extended fenders that stick out to cover the wider suspension that it has. The other thing I noticed is the throttle. I really like the way the throttle responds in the Tacoma. I really didn't expect that, and I also think it made up for the fact that it doesn't have an 8-speed, and its crawl ratio isn't as good as the ZR2's on paper. Effectively, though, it was easier to drive in those low-speed crawling situations.
I agree. I noticed that too, and overall, I was kind of surprised at how well the TRD Pro performed off-road. I kind of thought going in that it would be outclassed by the ZR2, given what kind of mega hardware that thing has. So, you know, now's the time we got to make a decision. If it was your money, what would you buy, TRD Pro or Colorado ZR2?
I think I'd have to go with a TRD Pro.
Yeah, I'm conflicted because, you know, I'm not nearly as off-road oriented as you are.
Right.
So I want to get a TRD Pro with the Colorado ZR2's powertrain in it. Well, now that that's settled, or not settled, we're going to go get some dinner. Thanks for watching. Go to Edmunds.com for more videos.